Welcome to Aspire to Lead, where we empower educators and school leaders to grow, inspire, and thrive. I'm your host, Joshua Stamper, author, speaker, and leadership coach, bringing you conversations that spark transformation, challenge the status quo in education, and equip you to make a lasting impact on your campus or in your district. For more information and resources, visit joshstamper.com as we're looking to ascend to new leadership heights together. All right, welcome back, Aspire Leaders. I'm so excited for my guests. And it's someone I've been connected with someone who was on last week with myself as we're kicking off the school year, the wonderful Darren Peppard, as Dan has written a beautiful book that we're going to talk about today in great detail. And before we do that, Dan Stecken, thank you so much for being on Aspire to Lead.
Well, hey, Josh, thanks for having me on. I'm really excited to connect with your audience and talk about leadership and the realities of the stress involved in it.
Isn't that the truth? Goodness sakes. So me and you got to connect before this show, and it was so incredible to get to know you even more so than we're going to do today. But I'm excited about your message. I'm excited about the wisdom that you're about to share with our audience. But before we dive into some questions, I'd love for you just to share a little bit about yourself, your educational and leadership journey.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, again, thank you for having me on. And one of the things I say all the time is I don't go to work, I go to school. Very blessed. 21-year educational career, all spent exclusively at the same high school. Started as a math and social studies teacher, softball coach, football coach. Did that for 13 years. Loved the classroom, missed the classroom, missed coaching. I call myself a recovering head coach. I loved every minute of that. But I knew at some point that there was something else out there for me. And leadership has always been something that I've just loved it, sort of engrossing myself with. I love reading about it. Military movies have always been something that I've really enjoyed watching. So I knew at some capacity that my leadership realm would extend beyond the classroom and the softball diamond into what I hope to become a principalship and eventually a school district superintendency. The tricky thing for me is that I never wanted to leave Seneca High School. And I've been very blessed that 21 years, that's where I've been, Seneca High School in Seneca, Illinois. I often tell people that our school district is like Mars. You can't appreciate or really experience it unless you've lived there, and it's impossible to live here. You have to have Elon Musk-like connections. We're a destination district. People don't leave. We got a great culture, great people, great kids, great programs, great facilities, great resources. Just very blessed to be the superintendent and lead this district. So I've been the superintendent now for 5 years here. I share my enthusiasm with what I do and going to school every single day with a lot of people. And what I've found, especially in my superintendency role, that I did know this before, but I've discovered in my network, both locally in the state of Illinois and now nationally, that there's a lot of superintendents, principals, and teachers, of course, just sort of drowning, dying on the vine, if you will. And I find that to be so troubling because, 25 years ago when I made the decision to become an educator, I just wanted to help people. I wanted to work with kids, work with like-minded adults, and try to pay it forward and give it back. And that's something I do every single day here. I'm not perfect. I don't have all the answers. My book doesn't have all the answers, but I love the journey. And I created Stress Leaders because I wanted to help people remove the stress in that leadership. And if you look at the cover of the book, stress has got a slash through it. And that's what my book and my retreats are about. It took me some time to realize that even I was stressed in what I was trying to do. So I'm always just trying to help people out and pay it forward and find ways to help, people in my own district, of course, but then also outside of our school district, find ways to support and elevate leaders. And leaders are not just superintendents. They're administrators of all kind. And the greatest leaders I know oftentimes are our classroom teachers. That's the hardest job out there. And those are the people on the front lines that make superintendents like me look good. And that's hard to do.
Well, the Stress Leaders book, we should talk about that. And for those who are on YouTube, you get to see the beautiful cover that Dan showed. It reminds me of Colorado. Is that a picture from my state?
That's Manitou Incline.
Yes, the incline. Been there many times.
The incline has kind of become a metaphor for my life. I didn't set out to write a book initially. I've always been a pretty successful writer. I mean, I've got 3 master's degrees on my wall over here and a doctorate, and just did all my writing for educational purposes for about 20 years. And it was through several friends that were going through really tough professional and personal journeys that I kind of unintentionally started coaching them and kind of creating anti-stress solutions. And it just kind of naturally fell into some content that eventually became some curriculum or content for a retreat that led to a book. And that incline picture is important to me because I took it, but I took it at the third time that I climbed it. And the first time I climbed it, I weighed 350 pounds.
Oh, wow.
And the second time I climbed it, I was down to about 270. And the third time I climbed it, I was at where I'm at today, right about 240. And that cover that really spoke to me has, it's cloudy. You can't quite tell from the morning fog what's up lies ahead. And it's an uphill journey. Sometimes you feel like Atlas with that, rolling that stone up there. But I think that's leadership. And it's uncharted waters and you just don't know. And it's also been my own personal journey. So the book it's pretty raw. It's an open platform of vulnerability to my leadership journey. And that's all I wanted was to give back to people and let them see that I don't have all the answers, but I'm trying hard every single day to get better at it. And that's what leaders do. I've gone through a professional and a personal journey that's been very, very successful in trying to eliminate stressors in my life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, I think we have the same message. I definitely go toward the mountains myself, but that's probably why I live in the state that I do.
Yeah.
All right. So I want to talk about that honesty that's in the book, because you obviously talk about your journey and some of the pinpoint areas where you're like, okay, I'm feeling like this is unsustainable. And so I'm curious, what were some of those things that you were finding? What were those moments that you realized, okay, I need to do something different? And maybe was what shaped the message to your book.
Yeah, that's a great segue into what I guess I would lead with, is that in anything that I think I've ever done in my life, I've tried to do it 1,000,000 miles an hour, all gas, no brakes, and be the best at whatever I do. I have what's Arthur Brooks calls a striver's personality, in that I almost obsessive compulsive with chasing success. And especially when I became superintendent, I was a very successful coach. I was lucky to have a lot of great players. And the year that I retired from coaching, the state of Illinois inducted me into the Hall of Fame as a softball coach. That was an amazing honor. It speaks that your colleagues think that highly of you, that as soon as you retire, they put you in the Hall of Fame. That was pretty cool. Then I went in to become an assistant superintendent in charge of district finance and operations and human resources. And I was good at that, but that was really, really behind the scenes. But then you become superintendent and all of a sudden you're the face of the organization. You're the man. That bullseye's on your back and the weight of the world's on your shoulders. And I didn't want to let anybody down. 100 employees, 40 teachers, 400 kids in our high school, a town of 3,000 people. I wanted everybody to know that I had all the answers, that I was the man, that I could be counted on. And it took me a couple of years to realize that I was burning the candle at both ends. And some of the sacrifices that I was unintentionally making is that I was putting in 80-hour work weeks, first one here at 5 a.m., last one to leave after every varsity sporting event, 9 o'clock at night. And I've got a great wife and a 17 and a 12-year-old, son and daughter. And they've always been loyal to my journey and my chasing success and the top echelon of what I do. And I love and appreciate them for that, but that's not fair to them. And so it was kind of twofold in seeing that this impacting my own personal health. I had to have a heart surgery that was kind of scary as a young guy. And that led me into kind of a personal health journey. But then professionally, I was putting in so many hours and trying to prove to everyone out there that I was great at what I was doing, that it was taking away from the relationship with my wife and my kids. And those are the most important relationships above all. And, it's one thing to tell your employees that, yeah, family first, but then I'm not actually modeling it when I'm answering emails at, 10:30 at night and sending messages to board members at 6 a.m. when I should be where my feet are with my kids. And I've always tried to be a great dad. And I know my kids would tell you that I'm a great dad, but there's a reality when you put that kind of time and work in. I've never been a punch in at 7, punch out at 3 kind of guy. And I think in educational leadership, oftentimes superintendents, principals, building leaders, head coaches, you stack those hours and you're dedicating yourself to other people's kids. And sometimes your own kids get pushed to the side.
Yeah, for sure. Like, Dan, it's incredible. Like, your story is so similar to mine that my listeners are like, I think I've heard this before. just a little bit, because I was the same way. Like, I was going a million miles an hour. I was super driven, like, get out of my way. Let's go. You're either with me or get off the bus. Right. So for myself, I burnt out hardcore on a couple of occasions where I was in the hospital, kind of like what you were talking about, and reassessing things. With that reassessment, I had to like think about like what's best for myself, as far as like, if I'm not my best version, then how am I supposed to serve other people? Because what was happening was I was just tapping out physically, emotionally, mentally. So with that, I changed the way I ate. I started exercising, started doing some mental health activities. But Magic Mind was one of the things I switched over to, which was, sharpening my mind, calming my energy, and then also managing my stress. And so for me, it was incredible. It's a small little shot that I take every morning. It helps my productivity. Obviously, I know that it's got a ton of vitamins, neurotropics to help me focus, and like I said, help my mental health with each day. So for any leader that's out there, I know you're probably busy. You're running around the office, you're running around the school. If you're Dan, you're running around the district, and it's hard sometimes to put good things in our body. And so this was a way for me to do that, where I was knowing exactly what was going in. And I knew it was also not going to give me an afternoon crash. It wasn't going to make me feel horrible with all of these chemicals and other things that may be involved. So make sure that you're grabbing this. I'm going to put the code on the screen for those who are watching on YouTube, because, the code's not easy. Let's be honest. It's magicmind.com/ATLMMJ. To make it easier, if you're in the show notes and you click that link, it goes directly there, so you don't have to remember that code. And it also puts the code in for you at the checkout to give you up to 50% off on your order. So again, that's ATLMMJ. I myself get a 30-day package that comes. So I make sure that I have it every single month. And it's a beautiful delivery service, goes right to my door. I can cancel that at any time, but I don't, because I love this product so much. And I've been using it literally for years. So excited to have this and to share that with you. And I think it connects great, Dan, with our message today, which I want to go further with. So with that, Dan, let's talk a little bit more about that journey that you had. And obviously you were extremely vulnerable and talking through, those pinpoint moments for you. But you also talk about, as leaders, when we're feeling this way, we're not broken, but we're burnt out, right? And so with that mindset, I just want you to focus on that distinction and why it's so important for our leaders that are listening. But then also, as they're looking and reflecting, are there some changes that are necessary for that recovery process?
Yeah, that's a great point, Josh. I think that, I think as a superintendent, sometimes we put on this cape or this cloak of armor, sort of this Spartan vest that's going to, protect me. But it's a little bit of like imposter syndrome, where you feel like you've got to prove to everybody. But then it's also a little bit of like a punching bag where I can take that. Yeah, go ahead and give it to me. That's fine. Yep. And so once you sort of take that armor, that vest or that cloak off, you kind of realize that you're hurt, but you're not broken, and you can take steps to do those things. Like, honestly, one of the hardest things for me to admit was that I didn't have to function like a Marine. I did not have to be the first one to the building every day. I did not have to be the last one out. My first couple of years as superintendent, I told myself I can't take a vacation day because this school this place can't function without me. Well, guess what? After a couple of years, I finally admitted that I need to take my wife and kids on a vacation that's not sports related, because my kids are active in everything. For the longest times, vacations were softball tournaments. And I said, let's get away. Let's go to the beach, because we love the beach. And guess what? The school ran just fine. Yep. My building principal, assistant principal, my CSBO, they had everything on point. And now 3 years later, I take my vacation days. I mean, in my contract, I can't take them with me. So I just would lose them. And I talked to my board president, and he's like, yes, go take your vacation. So I think that was something that, at first I didn't want to give up that grip, that clutch of, I've got to be in charge. I've got to be here. I've got to be the man. And that kind of slowly opened up Pandora's box to say it's okay that I can also delegate some things, that I can dump some things off my plate. But honestly, really, it's almost by accident that the personal improvements that I've made in my life, both weightlifting, some running, eating better, and like you're talking about your product there, I mean, putting the right things in my body, that has almost spilled over into other walks of my professional life accidentally. My network has grown so immensely, just even through things like going to the National Superintendent Conference and doing their 5K run. I'm not going to win any races, but I complete it and I do it. And you meet some people and you hang out a little bit afterwards. Next thing you know, you're connected on LinkedIn and you're talking to people. And I've always been a relationship guy. I can talk to anybody. My wife and kids will be at the grocery store and I'll run into somebody and it's, we got a half hour. Dad's going to talk about school or high school football or whatever. So that's always come easy for me. But I tell people now that the stress leaders movement was not something I ever set out to do. I never wanted to have a side business. I never wanted to have an LLC. I didn't plan on writing books. But that coaching piece where I call myself a recovering head coach, it's fulfilled that. And like you talked about, filling your own cup first. I tell people now that with stress leaders, my cup's so full that gratitude is like spilling over into other walks of life and onto other people. And that's been a really cool feeling. I've always felt good about leading Seneca High School in our district. I've always felt great about my Irish pride. Our mascot's the Fighting Irish. But now I'm having an impact outside of this district and outside of our town. And that's been a really cool feeling for me to be able to help other leaders, not even just in education, but in other industries. I mean, as an author, when you get that random Twitter notification or text or LinkedIn message that somebody bought your book and it spoke to them, yeah. That's such a cool feeling when you get that and you're like, you don't even know this person. I had just this morning, I had somebody on Substack reach out to me about my book and they bought it. And I was like, man, what a cool thing. And then you said you saw on TikTok and I laughed because my son made my TikTok and it's like, I don't know what I'm doing with TikTok, but he made it for me and people awesome. Have watched it and bought the book off of one video that I have on TikTok. So yeah. I just would tell any listener out there that it's okay to take that armor off and it's okay to admit that you don't have the answers. And it's also okay to do something about not having the answers and taking the armor off. That once I kind of admitted some of that vulnerability and they said, all right, I need to get my stuff together. I need to get in better shape. I need to attack my own personal fitness and health because I've got 2 kids I want to be around a long time for. And this job can very easily, you talked about what you put in your body. I was that guy here at 5 a.m. till 9 p.m. And then at 9 p.m. I'd leave the school and stop and get a couple of slices of pizza and a fountain Mountain Dew on my way home.
Oh, for sure.
And, when you do that 5 nights a week, that's an easy way to impact not just your relationships, but also your personal fitness.
Mm-hmm. Well, let's dive into that even further because, as far as maybe our new leaders or our young leaders who are maybe going, yeah, I'm working 5 to 9 also, and I'm doing that consistently throughout the year, and they're starting to feel it now. I know for myself, it took a little while before I realized, okay, I need to put some boundaries in place for myself. And for you, were there any different strategies that you put in place that really you felt was extremely beneficial? And you got your phone up for those who are listening on podcast platforms. So what you got on your mind, Dan?
Digital fast. The advent of the cell phone and technology is amazing, but there's no boundaries anymore in leadership roles. You are accessible all the time, 24/7, 365. We kind of laugh in my house because my wife is a hospital nursing director. She manages 100 employees. I manage 100 employees, and we have a lot of shared stressors, right? And in her contract, it actually says 24/7, 365 accountability. And I laugh about that because I tell her, well, they paying you for 24/7, 365? Of course. She goes, well, yeah, they give me a $50 a month cell phone allowance. I'm like, wow, goodness. What a great deal.
I've gotten those before too, Dan. That didn't really help me.
No. And what's crazy about that is they're expecting you to have no boundaries. And that's not a healthy way to live. So what I started and implemented really small at first was digital fast, where I just have what I call a phone fast. My phone's got every social media platform, my work email, my personal email, everything's on it. I found myself at 8 o'clock at night on my couch when my kids are talking to me, checking emails and creating calendar invites and talking about what I've got to do tomorrow. And you're not where your feet are. And that's terrible. And I look back on that, and I've had a hard conversation with both of my kids about some of the regrets I have as a leader in sort of chasing this pinnacle of my profession and my position, because my district is so special. I'm very blessed, like I said, but being husband and being dad, those are the most important things to me. Someone else will sit in this chair that I'm in right now someday. It's going to happen. But starting with digital fasts, where I would just come home from work and put my phone on the dresser in my bedroom and leave it there, and then go sit and make dinner with my wife or hang out with my kids a little bit and talk to them about their day. That was hard at first. I mean, you feel those lack of dopamine where your phone's vibrating in your pocket, and I had a couple of those fake vibrations, like what, my phone's not even in my pocket.
For sure.
I've built basic boundary strategies like that now have evolved into probably about once a week or two, I go 12 hours without it. Like I'll just take my kids outside and go do stuff. And I was cleaning my garage last week. No phone, no nothing, no music, just own quiet thoughts. There's a lot of power in that. And my garage was pretty messy. It took me about 8 hours to clean. But, working on a project in my backyard with my son, taking him to the football field, throwing passes around, no phone. I even recently wrote about in Substack, I did a 24-hour food and digital fast. Nice. Just to kind of disconnect from everything. And for me, there was great power in having the strength and fortitude to do that. But it also showed me just how addicted you easily get to that cell phone. So boundaries you're talking about and I'm talking about, those are very powerful things. But as a leader, it's very easy to blur those lines.
Yeah, for sure. Well, let's talk about the movement that's been created by you, Dan, and the retreats that you've got going on. Obviously, you've kind of constructed a community, not only just in the educational space, but it goes actually further than that, because the message that you're talking about is something that's universal. I mean, the folks in the business world are really struggling with the same thing as far as their cell phone or not eating well or having a jam-packed schedule and overworking themselves. So as far as your vision for that community and that support system, what are you hoping to achieve? But then also for our listeners, if they're interested in joining in this Stressed Out Leaders movement, how can they get connected with that?
Yeah, appreciate that. Again, it's been a couple of years now, but we had our first Stress Leaders retreat in Illinois, where I live, in an area called Starved Rock, which is a beautiful, beautiful area of Illinois. We don't have the mountains like you do out in Colorado, where my siblings live, but nevertheless, it is a beautiful part of Illinois that's been carved by the Illinois River. Nice. So we had our first event in 2024, and it was successful. It was good. We had about 25 educators there, and it was awesome. But in the second year, I really challenged our speakers and myself in planning it to say, everybody's stressed. Everybody in healthcare, certainly me, my wife, people in the business world, entrepreneurs, there's so much stress. So this last just about a month ago, I guess, we wrapped up our second event and had it the same place, but we had almost double the crowd. And there was such great power in it not just being educators. We had nurses, we had firemen, we had entrepreneurs, we had a couple influencers, we had small business owners, and we all have the same problems. And a lot of times it's dealing with our own insecurities, but then also in how we handle difficult situations with other people. And that's where most of our stress comes from. I always hate professional development where you just sit and listen. I struggle with that. I'm an undiagnosed ADHD guy. I think I'm moving all the time, but I wanted to make sure that each keynote also had some type of immersive activity. So we did everything from hiking to rucking to cold plunge therapy to breathing exercises. To my keynote was very simple. It was, here are 8 very real problems that I have, real stresses, and how I used to handle them and how I handle them now, and just even some role playing things. And the response to it was amazing. And I took that and kind of morphed that into some newsletters on Substack, and the response to those has been great. And it's amazing those energy vampiric things that control our days and take what started as a good day into a bad day. One of the most basic things I try to do every single day while I'm at work is I refuse to check my email first thing in the morning. I walk into this very seat that I'm at when I try to get a workout in the morning go home and shower. And then when I get to work, now I live a mile from my office, so it's very easy. But my 3-minute commute, I get one song and then I walk into the school and I come to my desk. And the very first thing I do every single day is I write. And I write for joy. I write for purpose. I write for fun. And I've got some newsletters on Substack. I do a Monday morning reset. I write about school. I write about leadership. I write about the things I like, music, the Cubs, my family. I don't start with bad news. I don't start with emails. I don't start with the news. I don't start with social media. For me, there's been amazing power in how that impacts the rest of my day every day.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's only for 5 minutes. Sometimes it's for a half hour. I'll walk out of my office then and I'll go find somebody to talk to. And I won't check my emails until the school day has started. And then I chunk out time for that. So sharing very real, stress eliminating strategies is what we try to do at our retreat. And man, it's grown immensely. And recently I was invited to speak at a conference in Indianapolis and talked about the idea of bringing it out there. And they were like, please, we want this out here. So I was humbled, but blown away by that. And then I've got some connections in your backyard out in Colorado Springs. My sister lives there. I've got a friend that's a pastor out there. And they said, bring this to Colorado. So summer of 2026, we're going to have 3 of these. We're going to do one in Illinois, my backyard, one in Indianapolis, and one in Colorado Springs. And we're updating our website, stressleaders.com, to reflect that. It's in the works, a couple weeks out from getting that done. Like I said earlier, I feel like my cup is just like spilling over with gratitude because I get as much out of these retreats, I think, as any of the people that participate. Just me listening to like-minded leaders that are going through similar situations and then connecting that network. I mean, they're just fun. And counting them for professional development hours, it's like a win-win thing, for me. So I'm really excited about next summer and can't wait to see where this goes.
Oh my goodness. There's such a need. And I'm so glad that you're putting these together and now having 3 different events in 3 different areas, because it's not just universal in the sense of, your job title, but also universal. It's all of the United States. It's probably all over the world, Dan. So who knows if it might go overseas at some point with the strategies and things that you're putting together. But let's talk about an actual item. And this is what I do with all of my guests, Dan, is that I ask, if there's something they could do tomorrow or next week, and maybe we can even have that lens that, our administrators are back in the building getting ready for their professional development with their staff. They're starting to get ready for their students. But if there's something they could do to enhance their leadership journey, what would you recommend?
Well, Josh, I think you hit it right on the head earlier about filling your cup up first. And I think one of the most powerful things for me as a leader and as a husband and as a dad has been putting this thing away. And when I can put that cell phone down and, just connect with my kids on a level that has nothing to do with sports, nothing to do with technology. I just got back, took my kids on a quick trip to my sister's place in Florida. We went down there and we watched Happy Gilmore 2 in the pool. Nobody had their phones out. We were laughing at the movie, sitting on floats in a pool in Daytona Beach, Florida. And the next day we went to Universal. I locked my phone up in the locker, and so we were just together. Being where your feet are is so hard to do in 2025 as a leader. It is. And I take that lesson, which people talk about that a lot, but I take that lesson and try to do it in my office. When someone comes in my office to talk about whatever it is, I put my phone down, I close the laptop screen, I'm all in on them. And I learned that from a friend of mine, Zach. And when you have a conversation with Zach, it's almost hard to do because he's so locked in the moment with his eye contact and he's just listening. And that is a lost art, that people can just genuinely listen without interrupting and telling you what they think, or just genuinely listening and being where their feet are. So that's just a great piece of leadership advice that was shared with me. I had another, my former boss, before I became superintendent, one time was giving me a nice mentoring lesson about something related to finance. And my iPhone, my iWatch was buzzing in, and I'm looking at it. And he said, Danny, you're not even listening to what I'm saying. You got way too many things going on. Slow down. And I got rid of that iPhone watch right then and there. I don't have one anymore. But he was right. And it's so easy to say, I'm just going to do that. But the physical act of putting your phone in another room and not letting it impact your wife, your kids, there's great power in that. And it's not easy to do.
Yeah, I love that so much. All right. So I've been flashing up for those who are watching on YouTube, the stressleaders.com. Obviously, you said it's going to be updated here in a couple of weeks, but for our listeners, if they want to connect with you, how may they do that, Dan?
Yeah, I think the best way to connect with me for those educators out there, I'm on LinkedIn. It's just Dan/Stecken. But I do a ton of writing on Substack, and I get a lot of great feedback about my writing. It's just something I love to do. Like I said, I start my day with joy every single day. And they're just thoughts about education, thoughts about leadership, thoughts about the things that interest me. So you can follow me on Substack. Stress Leaders is my tag name there. And then obviously I'm on Twitter, Superintendent Stecken. I tweet about our school and our Irish pride and the Seneca way that we talk about. But love to connect with your listeners. And I'm sure you got some local people out there in Colorado. I'd love to connect with them when we have our event in 2026. But I'm just excited to see where this thing goes, and would love for you to purchase the book on Amazon. I thought I could retire after it was out for a month, but I guess I'm not going to be able to do that. So check out the book, Stress Leaders Stay in the Game, on Amazon.
Awesome. Well, for everyone that's listening, I'm going to make sure that at joshstamper.com, I have all of the links to connect with Dan. Also, I have a link to his book, and then, of course, to his website where you can find more information on these brilliant retreats. And even if you're not in Colorado or Illinois or Indiana, I mean, you can always jump a flight and participate if you're outside of those three states. I know Dan would love to have you. And this is important. And, one of the things that I love about your title is stay in the game, right? And so many folks are feeling like, is this sustainable? Can I continue to do this? And, to have the support system constructed and for folks to be able to attend and find, like-minded folks, people are looking to put in strategies to help themselves and be a better person overall, I think is a beautiful thing. And I'm just so proud not only to be connected with you, Dan, but also to have you on this podcast to share out just some phenomenal things as far as your Substack, your book, and of course, this lovely retreat. So with that, thank you so much for being on the podcast.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited to keep growing it.
This podcast is a proud member of the Teach Better Podcast Network. Better today, better tomorrow, and the podcast to get you there. Explore more podcasts at www.teachbetterpodcastnetwork.com. We'll see you on the next episode.